What's up, BST? We're going to take a look at one of my favorite hip opening stretches. There's a ton of these to do, but this is probably my favorite because I always have tight hips. So I'm going to run through it. I'll go through two variations. One is, let's just say, a little bit more of a hip stretch than the other. So I'll show you both, and then you'll kind of figure out what your body's going to let you do and what it won't let you do. Okay, so in this there are actually two different things going on. I call these hip windmills. I think that they're called something like the greatest stretches on earth. They have some generic name, but let's just, for the sake of today, we're going to call these hip windmills. So starting at the very beginning, what I really want to do is just show you. The first thing I start to do is you'll actually see me just sort of setting my hips. So, in this really non-awkward hip thrusting manner, I'm actually going to start working back and forth. What I'm trying to do is just sort of work through any kinks, any rust that's going to kind of keep me from getting deep into this movement, because what I want to do is, you can see here, and I've seen people that try to do the stretch from this position right here. I'm kind of bent, and what I'd like to do is I'd like to get into a straight position from ankle to ear, and if, let's say that's a problem, at least from knee to ear. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work down, and all of a sudden I've created my straight line. So that's actually one variation, but what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to work into a deep lunge. So let's pause right here. Now, my hand is up on a little handle. You can use a yoga block. I wish that I could put my palm on the floor. I'm working on that, but because of how tight I usually am, I find that I actually get into a better stretch by elevating my hand just a little bit. So there's nothing wrong with having your hand up in the air like that. Again, just so you know, if you are stretching, if you stretch too fast or too deep, your body's response when you overstretch a muscle too quickly is to contract. So if the idea here is we're actually trying to lengthen something to its full length or its full potential, and you're doing something which causes the opposite reaction, you're going to get the opposite result. So right here, I have a straight line, ankle, hip, ear. They're all in a straight line. Okay, it almost looks like if I were to step back with my other leg, I'd be in a plank. My grounded foot, which you can't really see, is going to stay flat at all times. So even though you'll have sort of an obstructed view, what I do, I think little toe, big toe, heel all have to be contacting the ground at all times. So if my foot kind of twists or rolls out, I'm actually going to change the relationship of my leg and my hip together. So we don't want that. So my foot stays flat. From this position here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by taking my outside arm, and I'm going to begin windmilling it up. So from here, as I start to rotate, you can see that the line is not broken, right? What I'm not doing here is I'm not bending. That has to stay straight. This is actually a great hip stretch for your, in this case, the hip that's closest to you, even though the hip that I'm working open is on the far side. It's this sort of the outside of this backside glute. And I'm going to rotate out as far as I can go, which for me is right about here. What I'm going to try to do is keep my shoulder blades nice and packed. So what I don't want to see is a massive shrug on this side. This arm is going to stay nice and straight. This arm is nice and straight. And what I'm looking to do, as and this is one thing I need to be way better at, is just make a nice straight line from hand to hand. Once I get to the top, I'm actually taking this hip here, and I'm going to try to also rotate it through with the whole body rotating. Again, the foot stays flat, my leg stays locked out and straight, but I'm going to go up and, right about here, this is about as far as I can go. If you are hypermobile, and I'll actually critique myself here in a second, what I'd like to see is I should be looking up at my hand. That's okay, I'll catch it next time. But what I want to do is push into this, and if you're hypermobile like a lot of us are, you might have the ability to get your arm like all the way back here. We're not really concerned with how far the arm goes. What we're trying to do is think of this as a shoulder rotation. So I'm taking my sternum, so my chest is pointing here, and what's going to happen is I'm going to take my chest and I'm going to be pointing it this way. So my whole torso is rotating, my hips will turn with it. I get to the top, and I'm going to hold for anywhere from 2 to 5 seconds. I know people say you should hold stretches for as long as you can. Not true. We'll get into that at a later time. I'm going to push into here. I'm going to hold, and I'm going to go for probably about 5 to 10 repetitions of this, especially before squatting or hinge type movements. This is a really, really nice hip opener. I'll show you one here because we're going to shorten the time, but this is the first variation. If, for whatever reason, this is too hard or too hard on the opening hip, the close hip, the next thing is you can just do the exact same thing with your knee on the ground. Notice that nothing has changed other than my knee is down. I'm still making a straight line from my knee through my spine. The next variation is I'm going to bring the hurdle, or my planted hand will be now the opposite. So it's going to, the legs stay the same. My inside hand is going to plant on the floor, and I'm going to do the exact same thing this time. This time it's going to be opening the inside. So, and you'll feel this. This will be more of a groin stretch. So you'll notice my back leg, my heel drop down. That is not required. However, I think this makes it a lot easier because balance can be really tricky on this one. But the same thing, I'm making a nice straight line. So as I start to rotate through, you'll notice that my hips didn't sag, my knee didn't buckle and bend. I'm holding myself together, and again, what I'm trying to do is press through the floor with this bottom arm, create a straight line all the way up to the top. This is a crazy hip, groin, let's just say where your legs and your body tie together, a very good opener. So if you're really struggling to get deep into a squat, or you find that, yeah, I feel like I'm strong enough, but my knees are sort of getting pulled in unnaturally, this is a great way to get everything opened up. The second variation of this is the same thing. Again, let's say that you're struggling with this movement and you can't keep your knee off the ground. Well, what you can do is drop the knee down. And again, I'm going to get the same stretch really in this leg. This, we'll call it this groin, those adductors. I'm still getting a pretty decent stretch in this close hip. It's a little bit more of a stretch though when the leg is in that full extension, or when it's off, when the knee is off the ground and locked out. Okay, I can't stress this enough. This will really revolutionize your squats, as well as a lot of other things. It's a great chest opener as well. It's good for thoracic mobility. But give this one a try, and this is one where if you were to do this, once a day, you'll really notice the benefits very, very shortly. So give it a try. Let me know how it goes.